Hey guys, Matt Cobb here with another daily devotion for you. Last week I wasn't able to get one done. It was a kind of crazy week, but I wanted to make sure that we kind of continued on and picked up in our series in James. And I'm going to read James chapter 1. I'm going to read verses 13 through 15. But we're really going to just kind of highlight on verse 13 today. And then 14 and 15 we're going to kind of piggyback off of this one verse next week. But this was what James 1, 13 through 15 says. No one undergoing a trial should say, I am being tempted by God. For God is not tempted by evil, and he himself doesn't tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when he is drawn away and enticed by his own evil desires. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and when sin is fully grown, it gives birth to death. Now, there is a lot that we could unpack in these verses. And in 14 and 15, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, about the desires and how it starts as a seed and then grows and so forth. But I want to highlight just on that verse 13 to start with, that no one undergoing a trial should say, I am being tempted by God. Now, you may wonder and ask yourself, why would we even say that? Why would we say, I'm being tempted by God? Well, I think sometimes we confuse the aspect of a temptation, something that we're going through, as being God causing it in our lives. And we might not say that God is tempting me, but oftentimes, if we're honest, in the midst of the moment, we claim, why is God doing this to me? I mean, that's a very common question that you'll hear people ask is, why is God doing this to me? And we have to understand there's a big difference between God allowing things in our life and God causing things in our lives. And just as in the story of Job, God allowed Job to go through some crazy, intense things, but God did not cause them. But the one saving grace that we have, that we can kind of hold on to as that anchor, that nugget that we can just kind of cling to, is Romans 8:28 says that all things work together for good. Not that all things are good, but all things work together for good. And then he puts a qualifier on it, to those that love God and are called according to his purpose. Now that means that the things that we go through, the trials, the temptations, all of those things work together for good. I tell you what, it blew my mind when I one time was thinking about this verse and that aspect that even the things that I fail in, the sin, the mistakes that I make, the bad choices that I make, God can use all of that and bring it together for good. And see, there's a key element in that second half of James 1:13 that we have to cling to and hold on to, that it says that God is not tempted by evil and he himself doesn't tempt anyone. You see, that's a key character trait of God and of his goodness and his holiness, that he doesn't tempt anybody into evil and that he himself isn't affected by evil. And now, in the midst of pain, in the midst of suffering, in the midst of a trial, it may seem that God allowing something is him causing it. But those are two different things, and it's a difficult thing. Believe me, I've gone through many times in my life where I've wanted to scream at God, why are you doing this to me? Why is this happening? And I have found for my own self that it's the most liberating, freeing thing when I can be honest and tell God that, and then allow him to just work in my heart and say, but I'm still here. I've still got you. Romans 8:28, I will work all things together for good. I don't know how they'll work. God always does know. But I can trust and rely that God is good, that he is not tempted by evil, and he won't tempt us as well too. So there's more to unpack, but like I said, there's so much in there, some key elements that we have to understand about the nature of God, that he is good. We're going to talk a little bit more next week about those desires and the way that sin grows and the temptations and things like that. But my encouragement for you this week is, if you're going through something, if you're wrestling with something, just cling to God and be honest with him. Don't try to hide it from him. He knows us inside and out. but just rest and trust in that goodness of God and his character. All right, guys.